Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I got a bunch of weird stuff to get to today, Trump related. But all of it. And I was watching some sort of video yesterday, and it bled into this video. And I'd watched a Chris Hayes video earlier that day. And so this is late last night. And I think I was making the bed. I was doing something where the video was just playing, and it was annoying me because I'm not wanting to have YouTube recommend Chris Hayes videos to me. But as it was playing, I'm like, holy boop, right? Let's get into it here.
There is, this moment, I think it's fair to say, a broad frustration with what we just saw from a handful of Senate Democrats led by the leader, Chuck Schumer. Everyone from Senator Bernie Sanders
Chucky Schumer
to former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger and lots of people in between oppose the effort to allow Trump's continued assault on the federal government.
Okay, so Chuck Schumer caved on closing down the government that Trump's gutting. And I saw something from EOC was recommended. I didn't watch it. People whining about it, not agreeing with Chuck Schumer doing this, making a deal that was favorable to Trump to keep the government running, which raised a lot of red flags in the Democrat liberal movement. Didn't care about it, not real story. But what he says next here is hilarious.
Folks wanted to draw a line in the sand and say we cannot operate under the normal set of political rules here. And as painful as shutting down the government might be, the Democrats, as the opposition, needed to use any leverage available to them. Leader Schumer and 9 other Democratic senators saw it differently. They all voted to move to a vote on the shutdown vote to continue to fund the government. It's dispiriting. It's even infuriating to a lot of folks. But we've been saying on this program, the bulwark against tyranny in this country is not politicians. It's us. All of us in every walk of life who hold fast to the American promise of government of, by, and for the people. Not the debased whims of a wannabe dictator and billionaire weirdos.
Holy shit. So this is what I realized what this guy's saying. And I, again, was only half listening. But he's Alex Jones now. This guy's Alex. We are the resistance. Like he's saying, like, listen.
No kings. Not ever. If there was any good news on this otherwise bleak day, it's every single hour of every single day, folks are waking up, and there is a dawning awareness that it's time to fight back. Donald Trump's project is as clear as day.
Okay, so we are the resistance. And the name of this, title of this video is The People Hold the Power. Grassroots Anti-Trump Resistance Outshines Lawmakers. Like, you think people are going to do, you think protests are going to do something? You think Donald Trump and the people who gave him power are gonna care about people protesting? Or you think those protests are gonna work? Like, it's just gonna roll out martial law. I mean, he can't wait to roll out. He's trying to roll out martial law anyway. He just was doing it about something. He's trying to pass wartime acts and these other things. And so, this is hilarious. He thinks they're the resistance. We know this in the truth community already. Alex Jones, by the way, like, I guess one of his reporters was murdered by his apartment somehow. I don't know. I found out about that. But this is they're Alex Jones now. Like, they think they're the resistance, and they're going to fight back through protests and calling their Congress. I don't know what it's going to be. When you realize your politicians don't give a fuck, and they're feeding into this thing, and you can't stop Trump from doing Trump shit, right? And that, there was a great line from the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a player named Mika Fitzpatrick. They had this thing on, HBO has this show called Hard Knocks, which is a really good show for anybody who has even mild interest in sports or football. And my wife and I always watch it. And they did the NFC North. And Mike Tomlin's like one of these iconic coaches. Pittsburgh's had like 3 coaches in my lifetime. Like they are the most consistent team. And they're always good, they're always whatever. And Mika Fitzpatrick made a play like he caused a fumble. And he said, that's Mika Fitzpatrick doing Mika Fitzpatrick type shit. Right? He's yelling it like he's pumped up. This is Donald J. Trump doing Donald J. Trump type shit. And, they can't stop it. And it's driving them crazy because they think that this government works and the system works and the media works and people care. And, none of these things are true.
He wants to dismantle the system of self-governance and checks and balances and to create a presidential dictatorship that does not depend on the will of the people. His model is Turkey, Russia, Hungary, places where the strong man rules no matter what, and you don't get a say, whether there are elections or not. That is his goal. It's clear as day. He basically enunciates it daily. And everyone else needs to be asking, how do you stop that from happening? How can you use whatever nonviolent tools are at your disposal to stop this unlawful power grab?
Okay, what are the tools? I hope he goes into the tools because I really want to hear the tools. This tool talking about the tools. You have no tools. See, like most truthers are still lost in this. Most people who are sort of semi-woken up, whatever it is, whether they're woke people or, right-wing Hubies or whatever it is, they think you have tools, right? I've been through this. What are the tools? You have a pacified group of people who, for the most part, complain about their really good lifestyle and are upset ideologically about things. The first thing is you got to realize your beliefs don't matter. Your beliefs are inconsequential. I should read some comments here. I want to talk about this anyway. Let me see what I have in terms of Trump stuff. This person wrote, my family member's response to dump faking the assassination attempt. If it's fake, it was necessary because he's going to save the world. That's one of my viewers saying that. I don't know. Some of these things are. Is it even remotely possible that you might be a grifting moron? Your presumptuous speaking for Trumpers is more reminiscent of spell casting, shaking my head. You think I'm grifting? Like I'm the grifting moron? Like in what way? What am I selling if I'm grifting, right? I'm not selling anything. I don't benefit from any of these things that I'm saying personally. I'm not monetizing what I'm saying, right, in some way. Like what's my grift? Like what am I, what's my end game, right, in terms of saying these things? Like, it's silly. It's when they accuse you of doing something, like Trump's a grifter. Like it's pretty much well known Trump's a grifter. And if you don't get that, then you're just like, you're willfully ignorant. Like you're just, everything that Trump's been about is grifting. He's been a grifter his entire life in the public eye. Everyone should know that he's a grifter. Like that's what Trump should be defined as. Like that's the number one definition for Trump. There's other ones, but that's just one of them, right? And so, he's not the grifter. You're the grifter, right? Like it's silly. Like that's like what you're reduced to. You don't need to comment. You just turn off the video. You don't like what I'm saying. No, but you're the grifter. So stop grifting, grifter. And so this is what I'm talking about here. See, and the difference between me and most people is I know my opinion is, well, here's another one. I have zero sexual desire towards any of my 4 sons. This is how this person starts off the comment. It's a woman. So it's a mother. I have zero sexual desire to any of my 4 sons or anyone their ages. Okay, so why do you need to say that out loud, right? Like, what's coming next? That's what you have to lead the comment off with. I have zero sexual desire towards any of my 4 sons or anyone their ages. In fact, I love my boys very much and have sacrificed a lot for their happiness. However, I said to them before, son, you are so handsome and smart. If I weren't your mother and I was your age, I would marry you because I know you are going to make a great husband because you are such a good person. It's a weird thing to say to your kid. Don't say shit like that, right? Like, just don't, you don't need to say shit like that. Doesn't help their self-esteem. It's just weird them out. It makes it think that you're thinking about marrying them or thinking about them in that way. Like you could say you are a great catch and you would make a great husband. The I would marry you thing doesn't have to exist, right? That's why maybe you would say to somebody who isn't related to you, right? But even then, I mean, you could say that to somebody, like, whatever, if you're, meet somebody who's impressing you in some way. But you don't have to say the part that you'd marry him. You don't need to say that, right? You would just say, you're a great catch, and somebody, that's like a nice thing to say. You want to build somebody up. You want to tell them that, but it's not the I would marry you part doesn't need to exist, right? That's always going to get a little weird. You just don't have to say it like that, right? It makes it sound like you would think about marrying. It just does. It's like your internal world is whatever's going on there. Let me get back to it. I would marry you because I love you and you're going to make a great husband. You are such a good person. I've said that to them all to try to let them know how proud of them I am and how much a girl they date should value them. It's good to say stuff like that, but also you don't want them to get like arrogant about whatever. It's just like either way. Like, so that's whatever this woman's deal. This is her deal as her mom. So this is, and I'm like, why are you saying this to me? Right? Because I don't know. So it's the video, Trumpers faced with the realization their savior is a grifting moron. And it's the image, the thumbnail for the video is Ivanka Trump doing a lap dance on Trump's lap, right? Gyrating and dancing while she's sitting on his father's lap when she's 15 years old. And so it says then, and again, I have zero intentions of anything sexually towards my boys. I think that's what Trump was trying to portray to Ivanka, and it's everyone else's dirty minds that took it there, and I am not a Trumper. Not everyone else's dirty minds, right? Like, whether you're a Trumper or not, you're somebody who's got this weird thing you've done with your kids, and now you're like trying to look for compatriots, and Trump's like, he gets it, like, like I once said, one of my longtime viewers, I talked about how, you shouldn't sleep with your kids. I mean, if you have a family bed, which is, it's better than a crib. Like, I don't believe in cribs. You have a family bed, and the kids sleep in the bed when they're 2 or 3 or whatever. But you should be eager for them to go sleep on their own. Like, it's just, And and this woman was sleeping with her son when she was like 9 or 10 years old, right? And so, that's just not healthy for the kid. And I don't understand what's happening. You know what I mean? It's like, what's going on there that you think that's okay. And, and she kind of got mad at me or whatever. I mean, longtime viewers who were doing weird shit. And then I say something and, like, maybe you think it over. Like, maybe that isn't so healthy, right? To have the kid sleeping in your bed when they're, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Like, it's just, when they're a toddler, but at some point there needs to be some autonomy there. And so whatever stuff's going on with this woman and in her internal world, she really wants everyone to know that it's okay and it's not sexual when nobody was asking her. And that Trump is doing the same thing, and it isn't the same thing. Like, you can clearly see that Trump, when he's talking about Ivanka as a grown-ass woman, she's in her 20s, that he'd be dating her if he wasn't her daughter. He wasn't trying to build her up on The View, right? Like, she's somebody who's celebrated, as being, I mean, she doesn't need self-esteem builder. That's not what Trump's doing. That's not what Trump's about. He's got a creepy relationship with his daughter, right? And this person writes, seems like you sucked in to the fake news and their narrative. Just sit back and watch the art of the deal, which means Trump's going to win and do all these things. And so, and I got all those comments I read in my last video, like people were flipping out, or my video before that, or whatever it is. And the thing is that people think that my opinion or their opinion matters. It doesn't. Trump's going to fail or succeed regardless of what we say about it. And there's no self-esteem boost for being right. There's no saving face. Like, I used to care about being right. Like, it was, oh man, I was right, like some kind of thing. And now I don't care because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you figure things out or you're not, or you get duped or you don't, or you get played or you don't. you know, it doesn't, you don't get any extra credit like in life or whatever by being right. I mean, there's some advantages to it. This is an opportunity to grow spiritually on this planet, and most people are squandering that opportunity and going in the wrong direction. They're making it harder for themselves in a future life. That's, you know, that's what I believe wholeheartedly, and I have a mountain of evidence backing me up that the majority of people are, their egos have hijacked their soul's purpose, and they are failing dramatically at doing what they're supposed to be doing here, and making it harder for them in the future. They're adding more grossness onto their souls. I talked about this in a recent video, you know, whenever it was, right? But my opinion and your opinion doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't. Because it's not going to affect the outcome of what's going to happen. Like, your opinion about, like, a sports team, or, you know, people talk about, oh, this team's going to do this, and, you know, there's people making millions of dollars, Stephen A. Smith and all these sports pundits, to tell people what's going to happen or what's happening or explain it, and none of it matters. It's just people talking, like sitting on a bar stool, like Cliff Clavin in the show Cheers, and talking like you know stuff when it's not affecting the outcome of anything. Like, it's just an exchange of information, and it's not going to, you know, like there's the butterfly effect and, you know, all these things. But people's opinions and beliefs really don't do much at all, because we're in a time where things are just happening automatically. There's no reversing what's going to happen. You could lessen the damage. That's all we could do by, you know, adjusting ourselves to the reality of what's happening, unfolding in front of us. But we're not doing that. People aren't doing that, and they're not going to do that, right? And so, you know, what I talk about here, I have two things to offer. One, connecting to the divinity within you. And two, you know, the gratefulness meditation and all that stuff that's there for people to, you know, again, it's not an easy thing to do like it was for me when I used to go to a preceptor's house and used to go to gatherings. It's like, you know, it's a hard thing for people to you know, I'm not, it's, you know, the YouTube channel's comprehensive, and if people really want to put effort into it and figure it out, like, you got to crack the code. You got to figure it out way more than I had to figure it out when I did it. Like, there was an infrastructure and system, and there were 6 preceptors in the town that I grew up in, that I started doing Saj Marg, not the town I grew up in. And there was gatherings, and I went and I met and there's a master of the system who was an example of what the system does. And there was books and things that are more readily available that are now being scrubbed. You know, there was whatever that's sort of floating around on eBay or frickin' Amazon or whatever it is. And Kamish Patel has hijacked this system, so it's like, even, you know, like it's sucking all the energy out of this thing. And so people who do a gratefulness meditation, you know, if they're doing it and they're doing it right and they figured it out, it's working for them, they have to put a lot more effort, but it's more available too than it used to be. So there's that, right? So, you know, but there's that thing. There's something out there that can help you connect to the divinity within you, and then start your spiritual journey. And it's, you know, exists, and people can do it otherwise. But the Saj Marg, if they're struggling with doing it with Saj Marg, it's a lot harder to do it on your own. And most people struggle with Saj Marg. So, like, you know, it's a long shot in general, but it's there. That's the first piece. And the other piece is the system's going to implode at some point, and preparing yourself for that in whatever way that is, right? So those are the things that can change people's lives. And, you know, the other things that I say that might help specific people with specific issues, that I randomly just say, I'm not trying to help people. I'm just, you know, just shit's just coming out of my mouth and whatever. And if there's a flow of information, well, it wouldn't be shit if it's like coming from the divine source. And something that I say helps people deal with a specific issue. And that's something that I don't know about. But it's only people's personal choices in their own life that there's any, you know, it's going to have effect on them. But it's not the system. I'm not going to change the government, neither are you, and neither is Chris Hayes or any of these people, and then, you know, Alex Jones or any. It's just not going to happen. There's no info war. We're not going to. Trump isn't going to save the system, and Trump. If it wasn't Trump, it'd be somebody else taking it down. Like, Trump isn't the one lone. You know, Trump can't take the system down by itself. Like, if everyone else was great, you think Trump would even be elected? No. Like, it's because everyone else is fucked in the head that Trump is even president. And so, you know, none of this stuff matters, because it's going to happen one way or another. and our opinions don't, great. I predicted it, sure. That's great. Only if you prepare and you use your prediction. If you see something going to happen and you prepare yourself for it, like it was that sort of apocalyptic show, that Julia Roberts show on Netflix. Don't tell me, don't care. I don't need to know the name. I could look it up if I wanted to. And there's a ship that, everything's been hijacked. There's been a hacking. And there's a ship heading right for shore. And their blankets and stuff are there. And it's coming, and they notice it. Some notice it sooner than others. But it's heading right towards the beach. And it's eventually going to run up on the beach. And, the person that saw it first, and let's say they said, oh, that's going to hit us, and other people are like, no, it's not. And they're sitting there debating on it. It's just a matter of who gets out of the way of it, right? If they all get out of the way, it doesn't matter, because it's just the same act, which is getting out of the way so you don't get hit. But the people who had prepared, there's a guy in there's a Kevin Bacon character who is a truther, and he's prepared. He's got fucking stuff. He's got antibiotics. He's got, when he sees this thing's hitting, he's going to the grocery store and buying water, and he's got a little bit of an advantage. But then he has to deal with it. And they made him kind of be like a flaky character. But he was somebody who was prepared. And so, but you don't want to get obsessed with preparing either. Preparing for something that never happens, and you got, a bunker or whatever. You just want to do what you need to do. And if you're connected to divinity within you, you're preparing, and you're doing if you're listening to the, what the divinity within you, your soul's saying to do, you're doing that, right? And you're just preparing yourself. Sometimes it's just preparing yourself mentally. So that's all that's going to happen here for people. But other than that, we're watching the show, this, what I call the show, right? The implosion of the show. And Trump is the catalyst. And Trump can be entertaining. Now he's not. He just sucks. Maybe it's a little bit entertaining, but it's not like it was. And Chris Hayes is just coming around to it. They're realizing we're fucked, right? And we got to do something. So let's get back to it here. We are not okay, the resistance. I didn't even notice this. We are not okay. We're the caution tape over the American flag that's upside down, inverted. He's going down this path of the right-wing truthers, Alex Jones, shills, whatever it is, or all these people. There's no resistance, and there's no way to reverse what's happened. And I know this more than anybody because I've been talking about it for years. Once I looked at the debt-based economic system and I kind of understood it, it's upside down. There's no way to reverse that because it's what it does, right? It's not gone awry. This is what happens when you have a debt-based usury economic system. And it's usually a much smaller scale. But it always implodes. A Ponzi scheme implodes. A pyramid scheme implodes. A usury system economy implodes. And then the immorality that causes the stupidity and the dumbed downness of people. But all right, let's watch what he's going to say here. Because
how can we, as Americans, as supporters of democracy and the Constitution, build a united front across ideological lines in defense of marginalized people, the ones he's coming for first, in an almost literal reenactment of the famous Niemöller poem, in defense of working and middle-class people?
Well, if you're going to unite the people, you don't talk about Niemöller poems. That's the first step. That poem by Niemöller? I don't even know his name.
In an almost literal reenactment of the famous Niemöller poem.
Niemöller. It's a Niemöller poem all over again. Let's reunite. Come on, Niemöller.
In defense of working and middle-class people against the pillaging of oligarchs. Heck, in defense of elites and powerful...
Okay, elites and powerful people. They're talking about the elites, right? And oligarchs. But, this is not what people are going to gravitate to, bro.
Pillaging of oligarchs. Heck, in defense of elites and powerful people who are using their platforms and power to preserve the American way of life. Right now, it doesn't seem like Democratic leadership understands that yet.
Wow, it's crazy how this works, bro. It's amazing how, they always get to this thing. They embrace truther things because their model sucks. Gavin Newsom's now got a podcast, and, they're always late to the party. Not just the liberals and the Dems, but the all mainstream sheeple. And by the time the sheep will get there, it's already been wrecked. By the time the sheep will get there, it's already played out. And this is, this is what's happened.
But in many ways, and I know this sounds weird to say it right now, they are simply not what's important here. Stay focused on what's important. People are what's important.
People are important. They're not. They're fucking not. People are worthless at this point. And just, I mean worthless in that going the wrong direction. So in the Sajmark tradition, the very definition of a failed life is like the bare minimum of a successful life is you don't leave the place worse than the way you found it. And that's, when people think about that, they think, oh, that means a footprint. That means ecologically, that you're not leaving more, you're making the place better or at least neutral. You're neutral, right? You're not affecting the planet worse. And all of us are affecting the planet worse in one way or another by embracing the system that is polluting the planet, not just with what we consider regular pollution, but electromagnetic pollution. But what Babaji, the second master of the system, was talking about was what you are as a person, your thoughts, your internal world, and things that you were, your deeds and your actions, sure, but also what you're thinking and your agendas and your hidden world that no one knows about, and you'll just all the anger and hatred and negative feelings and things that you're leaving behind. You're contributing that to the atmosphere, right? You're contributing grossness and negativity to the world through your thoughts and your deeds. And so the bare minimum, and I love this definition, the bare minimum of a successful life doesn't mean you were rich and famous, doesn't mean anything like that, is whether you leave the planet worse or better than it is. And so if you're leaving the planet worse, and every level, spiritually, and that's not like, oh, I'm going to donate to foundations or I'm going to, serve food at a soup kitchen one time, right? It's just your overall effect on people and the environment and who you are as a person. And it's a definable on a spiritual level, like when you go in terms of the Christian belief where you go to heaven and there's St. Peter. You stand there with a frickin' an iPad or whatever, right? And they're taking a measure of your life, which is just what happens with your soul. Like on a soul level, you're either making the world better or worse. And you can't bullshit that. You can't claim to, I'm making the world better. No, are you? Right? And so everything else is a failed life. And that's 99% of people are making the world worse. Even if it's 90%. And so people aren't fucking important. People are making the world worse, not just for everything else. They're making it worse for themselves in the future because they're coming back and they're going to have to deal with the mess they're making right now. So people aren't important, right? People are the problem. Like if people weren't the problem, then it was just like, all right, the world's going to fuck us, right? The earth is going to, there'll be volcanoes and tumultuous things happen. Or is it that people are wrong and causing the problem, right? What are we doing enough damage to the system, the earth, that we're the problem? And right now we are on like an environmental level, but more importantly, who we are and what we're thinking about and what our orientation is, and the egos run amok and the selfishness. And Trump is just an outcome of that, right? He's a byproduct of that.
What's important. Public opinion is what's important. Civil society is what's important. And it's getting activated.
Yeah, none of those things. Let's watch that again. Like, he's just silly. Like, this is Alex Jones' pitch.
Stay focused on what's important. People are what's important. We're what's important. Public opinion is what's important. Civil society is what's important. And it's getting activated and organized every single day.
Yeah, okay, bro. It's nutless. It's been deballed. People complaining and saying, hey, this sucks, doesn't do shit, right? Take it from any truther that's been around for a while, saying things and pretending you're doing something and thinking that people care. It would have to be they would care about your opinion. That you would think that Trump and the people in power would care about your opinion, and they fucking don't. Only to the extent that you're going to go apeshit and go mob. Like go violent mob. That's the only thing they care about. And even that they're not worried about because the system is fucked. And so violent mob is not any worse than the system imploding where there's just chaos, right? Where it's post-apocalyptic. Like that's, they're the money, the financial system's fucked. They can't provide for you your lifestyle anymore, and they know as soon as your lifestyle's no longer there, they're gonna have to deal with you. And martial law is like part of it, but even that, like they have bunkers and they have to go isolate, and it's just going to be like Mad Max out there. I mean, that's, they see that as a possible outcome, where there's just no law and order, there's no society, there's no government. It's just people running around with guns and shit, hungry and fucking mad and crazy, and and they're just like out there as targets. Oh, I remember you, motherfucker, right? Like, coming across some angry, right-wing militia people that come across some person like Chris Hayes. I remember you, motherfucker, right? When things break down, that's what they're worried about. As to whatever extent those interactions might happen. Where, if you see that movie, whatever it is, Civil War, and they're going in, the rebels are going into the White House to get the president. And people are saying it's left-wing propaganda, but I thought it was a relatively honest movie about such a situation. And they're going in and they're storming the Capitol and the White House, and they're going to go kill the president, right? And they've killed all these other people, and he's just waiting there, and there's just no resistance to stop them.
Every day the movement is growing. I mean, Republican representatives are being told to stop holding town halls because their own voters will not stop showing up to yell at them about what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing.
Oh, my God. So that the town hall people yelling at them is going to stop them from what they're doing? No. Okay, this is just angry people. You think town halls matter? I mean, I don't even know why they're doing them in the first place, right? And there's plenty of people at the town hall that are agreeing with what's going on. You think a few disgruntled liberal people that go to a Republican town hall and yell at the people are going to stop them? Fuck you. Like, just, what are you, a child? Like, you a toddler?
I was proud to vote recently for the House budget resolution, which provides the framework to we should abolish the U.S.
Okay, so we saw this guy, right? He thinks this is going to make a difference. That's his first thing. That's his number one pitch there, right? This comb-over motherfucker holding a town hall in Asheville, one of the liberal hotbeds, and a bunch of people show up, like 200 people show up, fucking, and then it goes viral that this thing's happening. That's not going to do shit, right? And the Democrats are going to come back in, and they're going to go about their ruining of the country and looting of it, because it's just going to go back and forth till there's nothing fucking left, right? And like this silly, I mean, I don't know what Chris Hayes knows. See, they don't tell them anything. People in the truth community think that there's these secret meetings where they discuss all this stuff, right? Some Illuminati, Freemasonic meetings, and it's all discussed and everybody's on board. Everybody just gets programmed by the system to do exactly the wrong thing. Like, everybody right now is going about their business doing the wrong thing, and they're being handled and programmed by so many different factors. And the controllers themselves are like they're sealing their own fate. The people who control the system, they're going to be disempowered at the end of this thing, and they're going to disappear. That power, that oligarchy, those so-called elites, that's just a temporary thing. I mean, even they die eventually, but this is something different. That's all going to be erased. Everything about America, American Constitution, those things aren't going to exist in the future. The government, the ideologies, your habits, the fucking the Macarena, right? Like shit like that. It's all going to be gone. Like, 1,000 years ago, there's all this stuff that people used to do that no longer exists. And if it does exist, it's like playing that game of telephone. It only exists in an aberrated form, in a diffuse form. It doesn't exist like it used to exist. These mantras and these rituals people do, they get warped over time. They lose their meaning. And so 10,000 years ago, none of this stuff. Like, we don't even know what's going on 10,000 years ago. We have no idea. 2,000 years ago, Jesus was alive. And think about the world that he lived in. Think about the existence technologically and all the rest of it. And so, this just, and all the things that have changed since then, his teachings being warped and perverted, all this stuff. Like, none of these things last. And they just, it's just, but people continue to suck. People have sucked as long as we can remember. People have sucked, going in the wrong direction, disconnected from their soul, and doing bullshit things for their physical comforts and pleasures that go against God's will, and making the world a worse place. So that's, it's a humanity problem, right? And there's no resistance, there's no stopping it. People will continue to suck. People in power, people who seek power, specifically suck more than other people, and they're more corrupt and they're more damaged, and they always make more mistakes because they make mistakes that not only affect them and bring them down to a lower level, but they do things that bring other people down to a lower level, right? And that's why we're going in the wrong fucking direction.
Wonder. The protests against Musk don't end there. There's something really remarkable happening right now. I'm not sure people have really quite gotten their arms around this.
It's remarkable. This fucking remarkable. I'm a veteran. You don't give a fuck about me. That's remarkable. That's fucking remarkable. Do your job. Do your job. That's remarkable. A bunch of angry people in fucking Asheville, North Carolina, yelling at a guy with a fucking comb over. It was fucking remarkable. It was so remarkable.
Seeing this organic bottom-up movement against Musk's signature company, Tesla. Some activists just put up a website with a simple message, right? Sell your Teslas, dump your stock. And then an entire Tesla takedown movement has sprung up in response. And they've got a map where all the protests are planned all across the country.
Look at all these fucking protests, these anti-Tesla protests, right? There's somebody sent me this thing. I think it's a spoof, but people are rebranding their Teslas. Like one Tesla had a Honda Civic on it, and one of those like horrific Tesla trucks that look something from out of a movie called Logan's Run that my wife and I watched when we were kids, and we joke about it. It's like what we thought future cars were going to look like, but they don't look like that at all, right? And like we just saw one of those grotesque trucks the other day. It looks totally impractical, right? And we're laughing at the thing, and it said Toyota on the back. Somebody put Toyota, so I think it's a spoof. But like this is not going to do anything. What you're going to do is harass Tesla owners. And if Elon Musk's Tesla tanks, he's still going to find a way to bounce back, and it won't, because these liberal people who used to love Teslas are now pissed off at him and the whole thing, right? But people aren't going to sell their car. It's just stupid.
Happening for about a month. This weekend alone, there are more than 100 protests planned at dealerships, Tesla dealerships across the country, from Brooklyn to Toledo, Dallas to Grand Rapids, Raleigh, dozens more. There are even, as you might see there, a handful planned in Canada and the UK. And I'm going to tell you something. I wager next weekend there will be even...
You really fucking believe this? It's like so sad. Look at you pointing down. You're so sad, bro. Your big ass fucking lesbian glasses. Because Saturday Night Live did a thing where they thought he was Rachel Maddow. But this is pathetic, bro. Bro, it's sad. Like, you're just fucking sad. This is not going to happen. Like, we think this is going to affect anything.
More, and the weekend after that more, because this is growing every single day. And it's not Democratic leadership in Congress organizing these protests.
It's Nazi-owned. Trump is the most pro-Israel person ever. He's the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House, according to the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. That Trump is their greatest friend ever in the White House for Israel. He's given them a blank check, and you're calling Elon Musk a Nazi, right? And so, okay, so Tesla, its stock implodes a little bit, and they lose some sales. Like, it doesn't matter. They don't think they factor this in. You think the protests at Tesla is going to reverse Trump's fucking destruction of the country, or the destruction of the country that already existed before Trump even started to think about running for president? It's silly, right? Like, fucking Tesla protests. That's your recipe for success? That's your resistance?
Yes. It's just everyday folks who are fed up and want to make...
Dodge should cut JD's eyeliner budget. That's a good one. I'll give that sign a thumbs up. But look at these morons, right? Like, you're looking at, like, this is a couple hundred people. Trump is a loser. Elon is a beta. Beta. Pussies grab back. What the fuck? So you guys are, so there's a bunch of pussies out here grabbing back, and she's, so this is, I'm not sure what that's, Center Race, what is that? Center Race, Class, Disability, Trans Rights. Disabled, I guess. Democracy, not oligarch. Okay. It's a couple hundred people, bro. Like, this is the You're Resistant. I mean, it's the same bullshit the Cubies fell for. They don't care. Your protests have no effect on anybody. I say they don't work. They only work, like, you know, if the protests get so bad that Trump can invoke martial law, which is going to suck worse for everybody. And they're, you know, he's going to reverse posse comitatus. I mean, all those things. These are big things Trump's doing, and he'll do them. He'll anything he can do, he'll do. And, like, you know, if he does posse comitatus and martial law, then there won't be anything that can stop this other stuff, and he'll just, you know, continue on being president long after his term's over. I mean, these are things that are on the table. You think this is going to make a difference? You think that people care about this? Who the fuck do you think is going to be scared about this or affected by this? These disgruntled liberals out there. When have protests ever fucking worked, right?
Their voices heard. And it's having an insanely
felon. Defund Musk.
Outsized effect.
Despair is not an option. Oh my God, these fucking bumper sticker things. Oh my God, I'm changing my opinion. There's a movement. It's a movement that's happening across the nation. These 100 people walking down some liberal city, inconveniencing everybody and talking about shit that they can't control. Like, it's stupid. It's fucking silly. It's like you're having a tantrum. You're going out, oh, I don't like this. Let's go all rally together and have a tantrum. The only thing that could happen is if there's some sort of armed resistance. And you said you were already against violence, and you guys don't believe in guns. So what do you got? You got nothing. You got a bunch of old liberal boomer hippies walking around thinking that they're still in the fucking 60s, where the protests didn't really work then either.
I mean, Tesla's sales are just crazy.
Trump equals a tyrant with his, look at that fucking ugly vehicle. Stop Musk. Stop the theft. Like, you know, who do you think is going to, this appeals to? You know, I told people this, I've told this story a lot. So I was working a job where I was a clinician. I'd already worked as a counselor in a treatment center. I went back and I moved from Massachusetts to New Mexico and got my master's degree in I was getting my master's degree in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I just got married and it was chaos, and my ex was going through a divorce, and we had 2 kids, back-to-back Mother's Days, Irish twins. And I was, you know, in this counseling program, which was called transpersonal, it was a blend of all the other psychological models that you're supposed to pick and choose from. It was a good program, but it was really liberal people in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is a liberal hotbed like Asheville is. And this is back when liberals weren't, I mean, they were better, a lot better. The liberal movement. It was like when we weren't compromised, and, you know, they were still liberals, but not like crazy, you know, stuff they do now. And, you know, I ended up working at a treatment center. Now that I had my master's degree, I was a clinician. And I worked with these kids who were teenage sex offenders. Worst population. The place was unbelievably corrupt. You know, there was a guy, he was a Russian guy, 6'5". He looked like some guy who'd be in like a Rocky movie. You know, like that guy you fought in, you know, like it was a Russian villain. And somehow he came to America and got his degree in psychology, and he was running this place, but he was clearly not a compassionate person. And we got an email saying, you know, for most of the time I was there, you know, it cost $120,000 a year to put one of these sex offenders in a treatment program that didn't work. And the place was banking $9 million a year. Because I sat in on the bigwigs came to, like, the guys who were the economic people of they owned a number of these sort of places, these treatment centers, and one of them was for kids who were, like, you know, acting out violently, and this one was for sex offenders. And they were supposed to be nonprofit, but they were making a shit ton of money. And they said how they made $9 million the past year off of this place, because they were charging $120,000 in 2000, and it must have been 2002 or 3. You know, I was working there. And so, they were making a shit ton of money for something that didn't work. These kids weren't being changed or being made better. And the governments couldn't wait to put kids in there that were having these issues. School systems and social workers and parole officers, who were in charge of these sex offenders, would put them in this place, right? And there was a waiting list to get in. I mean, there was like always 6 or 7 people waiting to get in. And so it was a 2-year program. But at one point, the waiting list dried up. And so the guy wrote this: don't allow any of your kids. So these are kids who have passed through the program, right? Whether it's worked or not, they did what, whether they faked it or not, it doesn't matter. They've passed through the program. And some of the kids did well. Like they might have, they were sincere. It probably wasn't going to help them because they were kind of, it was a fucked up program, right? It was a fucked up place with a lot of fucked up people working there, right? So, it wasn't like they were getting good quality treatment. But when they were done, it's like a prison sentence. If they graduate from the program, you're violating their constitutional rights, right? They've done what they're supposed to do. And you're also defrauding the government because you're not letting them out. So he said, don't let anybody out. And so I'm like, fuck you. I'm not going to fucking, that's illegal, right? And so this is the kind of shit that I was dealing with. It was very stressful, very corrupt place, very, difficult kids who are fucked up kids who are sex offenders. And then I went home. My ex was, she had been sexually abused, and at least that was her story, and she was psychologically fucked up and had issues. And we had 6 kids, like 2 from a previous marriage that she had, and 4 kids. We had a home birth. Like this happened, my youngest son was born. And I was going home, and the kids were sick, and my ex was stressed out like she always was and couldn't deal. We lived in this cockroach-infested apartment. I was making like $32,000 a year. It was like fucking brutal. Like we were in poverty. Like I'm a professional person. And, there was a tough day at work, and I'm driving home, and I lived in a 5 college area in Massachusetts. I drove out to the country where this treatment center was. And it doesn't exist anymore. I looked it up a while back, and it's now something else. And so I don't know if they got busted for corruption. It's just bad. And I'm driving home, and it's when the Iraq war is going on. So this is 2002, 2003. And there's protests from all these people. And they're all fucking young, dopey college kids that were going to UMass or some other university, or mostly UMass kids. And they've taken over the center of UMass, and I have to wait like 20 minutes to drive through, something that should take me 2 minutes to drive through. And these kids are walking by my car smiling, and I want to slap them. I'm like, I got real problems, and your fucking protest here is going to do nothing to stop the war. You're just inconveniencing all of us. And everybody in the cars, it's a liberal area, is against the war. Like pretty much everyone was against the war at that point. But most of the people that lived there were against the war anyway. So who are you fucking protesting to? We're all against the war. You're just inconveniencing us so you can go out and smile and feel like you're doing something. Because protests don't fucking work, and you're children. You're like, you're embarrassing. You're embarrassing children, even though they're college students. And then, they're closing down this whole fucking, there's no way to go around it, right? It would have taken me 30 minutes to go around this fucking protest, And so, like, that's when I knew that protests sucked. And every day since then, when I've seen something that's a protest, I realize what it is. It's bullshit. It's just people thinking they're doing something and feeling like they're part of a community and they're changing shit, and they're not. They're just inconveniencing other people and, out there in front of people performing and, like all this stuff. It's just superficial. It's just silly. Just like truthers who think there's a resistance and you're going to change the world, you're going to do something. It's fucking silly. You're not doing shit. Stop patting yourself on the fucking back. You're just, you're aware of something that you're not going to convince your sheeple relatives or other people to do anything. Then how are you going to convince total strangers? There's no movement. There's no change. There's no solution. The best you could do is take the system down, and that would be it. Like rebuilding the system would be impossible. You couldn't agree on anything. There's division. People are incompetent. They don't know how to think. They don't know how to they don't understand anything. All they care about is their own selfish, egotistical practices. And so you couldn't build a system with the people you could never build a good system with the way people are now, even on a small level. If you started an organization, I saw this happen with Heartfulness and Saj Marg. These are people who are spiritually oriented. Some of them are great souls from past lives who were like, saints and higher developed souls and worked on spiritual organizations before. And I watched the infighting and nothing got done. And just, I mean, if it wasn't for the master of the system micromanaging it, the system would have imploded like it did when Kamlesh Patel took it over. Even on a grassroots level, a spiritual organization, like there's a higher developed soul comes down, a saint that comes down, and there's a teaching, there's a movement, everyone feels good, and people can't wait to get their greedy hands on it and corrupt it and turn it into some bullshit religion. Like, that's how people are. They'll fuck anything up, and you see it all the time. Even if they achieve something, it's short-lived. Like, they implode. They get egotistical, or people around them, it gets corrupted. I mean, like a championship team. That's why there's so few sports teams that are dynasties. People get success, and then they all get greedy, and they start getting jealous of each other, and they fall apart. Things don't last, right? It's just the negativity and the fucking corruption always take over. And so there's no sense of building a better system until people are better. People have to choose to embrace the divinity within them and live disciplined lives and resist their temptations, resist their desires and things like this, resist their jealousies, throw out their hatred, and deal with all these things that are negatively affecting them and the rest of the world. And people have to do that collectively. And they're not even trying individually. So how the fuck is something's going to get better? And when I talk about it, people don't want to hear about it because no one wants to do that shit. Oh, I have to change? Fuck you, right? Well, who said I had to change? What do you mean I have to change? Look at how these other people suck worse than me. Why do I have to change? Why don't they change, right? Because, like, if you don't change, who the fuck is going to change, right? And so this is what we're dealing with. Protests don't work because you're basically saying, if I hold up a sign and show I'm angry, Elon Musk is going to change, or the people who are in charge of him are going to change. No, fuck you. Like, if you won't change yourself, why do you expect someone else that you think sucks and who doesn't like you and you don't like them is going to change? If you can't get your loved ones to change out of love, you can't have an intervention with somebody and your life is going down a difficult path and reach out to them in love and concern for them and they don't get it. How the fuck is Fauci going to get it? How the fuck is Trump going to get it, right? It's silly. Protests don't fucking work. Telling other people they suck and they need to change doesn't work. Look at anything that goes on the internet, right? Let me play that clip from Brian Regan here.
Hey, I saw something interesting today on social media. Somebody posted a very strong political opinion, and somebody replied, "Good point, I changed my mind." No, I'm sorry. I saw a unicorn. I saw a purple, glittery, flying unicorn.
Okay, so, like just a great joke. That's a wonderful joke, and everything that I'm saying here. Because people are posting shit all the time, expecting the opposition, arguing with people, or like, all you're trying to do is make other people feel bad about their beliefs. Like all the comments I get that are like, "Hey, fuck you, Paul," in one way or another. It's people like, "Oh, I want to make you feel bad about your beliefs," and I'm like, my beliefs don't matter. You think my beliefs matter? You think your beliefs matter? What are you doing? You're silly. You're silly little people, right? You're silly little people saying things on your little comments that make no difference, and they're just wasting your life and your time and your energy, being unlovable, right? And so let me show you this one thing with Trump, then we'll get back to this other thing here. This is the resistance watch right here.
Impressed by that. Mr. President, walk us through the tariffs. Mr. President,
Boom. That's your resistance, Chris Hayes. This is it right here.
Mr. President,
boom, a little fluffy microphone.
You're concerned about the situation in Gaza.
That's where Trump is funny. Like, that's funny. His expressions were funny there.
What are the hopes now?
Like, not laughing at him, laughing with him. That's a moment that Trump's actually funny.
Get the hostage back.
She just became a big story tonight, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you see that? What?
In Gaza, sir.
You got hit with a fluffy microphone, right? It's a big deal.
The situation.
It's a big story. Some Some grown-ass man with a fucking his own bullshit comb over got hit in the face with a fluffy object. It's big story. It's big news. That's a resistance, Chris Hayes. Okay, so we're almost halfway through this video, this Chris Hayes video, and we got a bunch of disgruntled liberals with weird fucking big-ass hats and these cyber trucks and all the other bullshit protesting at Elon Musk's Tesla factories that were sponsored by liberal legislators that gave him billions of dollars to build these electronic vehicles. And now the liberals have turned on him, a few, handful of people. What else you got, Chris Hayes?
Trader, and the stock price has seen all of its post-election gains vanish. Musk's personal wealth has declined by
Okay, maybe there's 500 people there.
more than 125.
Let's call it 1,000, right? 1,000 people out of millions. And again, who is this inconveniencing? Who is this affecting, right? Control guns, like kick out the king. I mean, just silly little shit, right? Like these. What do you think happens when people read these signs? What do you think is going? What's the chain reaction in which Trump is going to be disempowered? He's going to stop doing what he's doing.
$1 billion since the beginning of the year. That's because of this. And that's why Donald Trump had to turn the White House into a car lot this week and cut an ad for his co-president's fleet of vehicles. While the Attorney General of the United States effectively tried to threaten folks with jail time if they voiced their dissatisfaction with Musk's company.
If you're going to touch a Tesla, go to a dealership, do anything, you better watch out because we're coming after you.
Wow.
And
Well,
if you're funding this, we're coming after you. We're going to find out who you are.
So, like, this is going to be like a path to martial law. If the goal of Trump is to bring out martial law, which it is, and get rid of posse comitatus, which is stated goals of his, which you only can half believe, but I believe this is stuff he legitimately wants to do. If that's what his goal is, you're helping him, right? Destruction of property. And again, what if the person's some liberal person who bought a Tesla before Elon Musk, I mean, like, you're mostly, I would say Teslas are owned like 80% by liberal people, like rich liberal, right? When you would say that if you break it down, I'll look it up later after we're done with this stuff. Next time I stop, I'll look it up. But, for the most part, Democrats own more Teslas. And what are you doing, right? Like, who are you going to sell? People are going to take a loss on their vehicle and sell them because you're disgruntled? It's like fucking misguided. This is not a path to success. Protesting Teslas isn't going to stop Trump and Musk. Like, silly fucking bullshit, right? Like, this is your strategy. This is your strategery.
If you go to a dealership, no. We've all got a First Amendment right to stand on a sidewalk.
Do we? Joe Biden tried to get rid of it, motherfucker. Now you care about the First Amendment? Fuck you. Like, where were you when the rest of us were being censored by Joe Biden pressuring social media? Fuck you. Like, this little bitch-ass motherfucker, right? Where were you standing up for First Amendment when Biden was doing it, right? Now that Trump's doing it, it's a crime?
With signs outside a dealership. Doesn't matter what Pine Bondi says.
Yeah, go ahead. That's going to be non-effectual. And so if you get into vandalism, then it's a whole other thing, martial law.
Counts. This is not being funded by some big funder. It's a grassroots movement.
It's grassroots. Sure it is. It looks staged as fuck. But even if it was grassroots, it's denuded. It has no merit, right?
Organizing, they're putting up a website. And at any rate, it doesn't seem like those scare tactics are working. I would hazard they only make people want to protest more.
Is this the centerpiece? Is your thing is protests? You got nothing. The people hold the power. Grassroots anti-Trump resistant outshines lawmakers. When has it ever worked? Like, show me, like cause and effect. Protest. Whatever you're protesting against gets worse. Like that's what happens. Whatever you're protesting, your protests actually empower the people to take away more of your rights and push back even more. Protests don't fucking work. Name a time when protests work, right? They don't work, right? They don't work. You know what happened? You know what worked? When all these protesters, when they're fucking grassroots liberal hippies protesting in fucking sandals and reeking of patchouli oil, when they started to inherit their parents' wealth and companies and they started becoming CEOs and they got into the tech business and they became powerful people, and then they pushed a liberal agenda when they had power and money, and they were pushing a liberal agenda that the world wanted to see happen, a liberal agenda that wasn't really liberalism. It was about taking down the system and these other things, right? Pushing like immoral, like these immoral things that were going on, these batshit crazy things. It was only when the liberals ended up being, the boomers grew up and they became 50, 60, 70 years old, and they had inherited companies, and they had become economically powerful people. And then all of a sudden, they became politicians and things like this. It wasn't the protests that did anything. It was the fact that they were frustrated with the protests, and they realized, oh, we have to get real power. And that's what the frickin', the right wing has done now with Trump, and they think he's pushing their agenda, and he's not. And they think their agenda is valid, just like the liberals do, and it isn't. Because there's no solution to the problem of America. It's the people that's the problem. People who don't want to change, people who suck and are getting worse.
Today, hundreds of veterans and their family members and loved ones rallied near Capitol Hill in protest.
Hundreds. Fucking hundreds? You mean hundreds of people rallied in Washington, D.C.? Fucking 100 people? Look at these insurgents. Look at these insurrectionists. Like Trump got 100,000 to come down there. How did that go for him? You guys didn't learn from January 6th? Why don't they storm the Capitol? And they can be called, and Trump can bring in martial law and military to beat the shit out of them. Like, see how that works. Like, just fucking silly. You stay at home and fucking type some bullshit on your computer about how bad you are, and all your liberal friends will go, yeah, that's great, and thumbs up it. It'll be great. You'll feel good about yourself. Don't come here with your bullshit signs and do this bullshit thing, because you're just provoking the inevitable martial law crackdown that Trump's got a hard-on for the last 8 years.
Musk's cuts to the federal government, many of which target veterans who worked at the government and have been fired or are serviced by the government directly. Yesterday, 100 demonstrators got arrested.
100, a whole 100 of them. 100 people, fucking 100 people. They got arrested.
Hundreds more occupied the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan to protest the unlawful detention of the Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's taken a little while for people to sort of understand what they're seeing, because it's shocking and it's surreal.
It could be millions of people, and it isn't going to do shit. People aren't going to get up and do. You're not going to get millions, but if you got millions, it wouldn't matter. And we saw the right-wing protests, and some of those fucking people were armed and shit, right? They're militias. It didn't mean anything. There's no stopping it, because we're all addicted to certain things in our system. If you withdraw those things, people will implode. Electricity, internet, food in the grocery stores, gas for your car, running water for your house. Like, these are all things we all depended on, and we feel like we're entitled to. And when those things are removed, people will go apeshit. Other than that, people are pacified and have no real anything. And the most they can do is break shit. The most the mob can do is destroy shit and go torture people and kill people and disempower people. But they can't build a new government. They can destroy the problem, but they can't build a solution, and they just make the problem worse. Anger and hatred only makes the problem worse, right? And so people have to get better. Like, they have to change internally. They have to change their orientation to the world. They got to minimize their egos. They got to embrace the divine presence within them and God's will. And people don't want to do that shit, right? There's only a handful of people who want to do it, and they just dabble in it. And, it's ineffectual, and it certainly isn't going to benefit everybody. It benefits small pockets of people, pockets of the future. But until the system collapses, there's going to be no progress. It's a bad system that we're all addicted to, and when it goes, some of us will make it through, and some of us will, see the light, possibly, or we won't, and it'll be just like fucking, some kind of post-apocalyptic, movie where a bunch of idiots, idiocracy or something worse, so it's either going to go up or go down. We have a choice point to embrace the divinity within us or go back to like a brute level existence. Those are the two options, where people are like animalistic, and so it's either going to go up or down, and we'll make our choices, and then there'll be whatever consequences for those choices. good, bad, or indifferent.
But it's just the beginning. There's a lot more work to be done. So yes.
There's a lot more. Wait, that didn't solve the problem. 100 people getting arrested and a few people with Tesla fucking signs up. That wasn't enough? Like, we have to do more? Jesus Christ, Chris. I mean, 100 people got arrested. Did you hear what you're saying? The thing hasn't gotten better yet? Like, come on, bro.
Some of the Democratic leadership is disappointing a lot of people right now.
Oh, they are they? You mean Democrats? Their leadership's disappointing them? You know, you brought this on yourselves when you elected Joe Biden. This is your fucking fault. You elected a guy who was completely senile, who was worked by the neocons and these other power groups and these people around him, and the censorship and all the bullshit that he pulled, and the economy imploding because he was a fucking guy with dementia, with Parkinson's, and you forced them on the American people and rigged it for them, and then you pushed back against all the Trump shit, creating, you know, anger and their, you know, whatever it is, and now they've taken over. And now you're whining about the same thing they're whining about, right? And you think protests are the answer. Like, fucking, you know, let's go to Amy Schumer here.
But they're elected to represent us. They're going to follow what the people do.
Okay, let's go to Amy Schumer. Okay, so one of my great nicknames is Sad Dumpling. This is Sad Dumpling, and this is where she got the nickname.
No matter how this goes, they cannot keep us down. We will win. A vote for Kavanaugh is a vote saying women don't matter.
We believe survivors. There she is, doing her Amy Schumer dance, right? Look at her go. You want to get arrested? And she says yes. I want to get arrested. Yes, I do. Please, let's have that experience. They're asking people if they want to get arrested or not. Do you want to get arrested? Sure, I'll take an arrest. A side of pickles, a side of French fries. Look at them holding up their fists. That's, I think, Emily Ratajkowski or somebody. There's a couple famous people here. Okay, so there's a moment here. I think did I miss it? Where she looks up at the camera. I'll find another one here. So this is the picture. This is why I said Sad Dumpling, right? With her pudgy little fist and her Sad Dumpling, right? So Kavanaugh made it through, and he, with other Supreme Court justices, overturned Roe v. Wade. And so this protest had no effect. Their arrest had no effect. The opposite thing happened. Kavanaugh was passed through, and Roe v. Wade was overturned. They're all about women's rights to kill a fetus, right? And so, you know, the fetus that's going to become, that's a baby, that's a human being. And so, you know, this is Sad Dumpling. This is where she got the nickname Sad Dumpling. And because protests don't work and they're silly, and she's silly. And, you know, well, you want to get arrested? Sure, I'll take an arrest. Like fucking Jane Fonda bullshit, celebrities posturing and posing and showing up DC. It doesn't fucking work, right? So let's go back to what Chris Hayes just said, because that's a big thing. I want to cover that more in depth. So here's another thing. One of my viewers sent me this. VR headsets being used by homeless people. So here's this person sitting there with a gross sleeping bag and sitting on the gross sidewalk by some Middle Eastern restaurant or something. Right? And with a bag of, I don't know, whatever it is, and they're just like, you know, somehow they can charge this, they have the energy. And where are they getting these VR headsets? And, you know, this is what they're doing. Like, he's playing there, and, I mean, this could, you know, this could be like lots of kids who just can't go out and make it in the world, and they just go and they say, well, what are you going to take with you when you're homeless? I don't know, my VR headset. And, you know, but they're on Meta or whatever bullshit. Like, this is reality, Chris Hayes. Just look at this and breathe it in, motherfucker, right? And Sad Dumpling, Amy Schumer, breathe this in. This is where we're at, right? Homeless people doing this stuff. So let's go back here a little bit. He just said something so fucked up.
It's shocking, and it's surreal. But it's just the beginning. There's a lot more work to be done. So yes, some of the Democratic leadership is disappointing a lot of people right now. But they're elected to represent us. They're going to follow what the people do.
They're elected to represent us. They're going to follow what the people do. You're a political fucking pundit and got your own show, and that's what you believe. I mean, are you just lying to the, your failing audience, your dying audience of boomer hippies and disgruntled liberals or whatever it is that are all, 70 plus people? I mean, where are you getting that? When have we ever heard, let's listen to that bullshit again.
Some of the Democratic leadership is disappointing a lot of people right now. But they're elected to represent us. They're going to follow what the people do. And so we have to show them what needs doing.
It's fucking stupid. We're talking about millions of voters. You need millions of voters to reverse what happened. When food prices go up and people are pissed and Trump's popularity goes down, then there's going to be something. I mean, it's happening a little bit. It's happening with Wall Street. But Trump isn't backing down now because he's not someone who's, he wants to save face. He doesn't admit he's wrong. He doesn't tell, whatever. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing for the people who put him in this position to destroy what's left of America, right? And so, the whole thing's silly. And you're a silly little person with a silly little show saying silly little things.
Faz Shakir served as a senior advisor to Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. He's currently executive director of More Perfect Union and a senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders. Rebecca
Who's this dude?
Traister is a writer-at-large in New York Magazine. She wrote about the shutdown fight on her Substack. They both join me now.
Fight. She wrote about it on Substack.
Guys, let me start with you because, I'm always very aware of the fact that in politics, particularly when it comes to sort of legislative actions and tactics, there really is a lot of backseat driving and a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking and a lot of
Okay, so I'm done with this because that was his solution, was protest. He had one thing, protest. That was his solution to all the Trump stuff, protest, which we know fucking protests don't work. I gave you a perfect example with Amy fucking Schumer. A couple celebrities showed up, got arrested. It meant nothing. It meant absolutely nothing. Kavanaugh got passed through. The Roe v. Wade got reversed. And that was a big thing. And it still went against, 60% of people are against that. And they still haven't been able to do anything about it, right? And so they're not even talking about this. They're not even talking about Roe v. Wade, which was the Democrats' big issue. And remember when Biden was supposed to talk about Roe v. Wade, and he ended up talking about immigration, and he he was so fucked up in the debate that he was supposed to capitalize on the people being upset about not being able to kill their fetuses. 60% of Americans were bummed about Roe v. Wade being reversed, and he started to talk about immigration and some immigrant killing some girl, and then Trump went to that funeral. He was so batshit crazy, his mind had melted down so bad. But this stuff doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. It just doesn't fucking work, right? And so it's silly. These are silly little people saying silly little things with silly little ideas for a silly little frickin' country that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. And it's just a joke, and all these truthers, all these people that think that these things can change, they're deluding themselves, especially all the sheeple who now are waking up to the reality that they're fucked. Everybody kind of senses they're fucked now. And Trump is just doing shit, destabilizing an already weakened system. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. It's freaking people out, but they have no one but themselves to blame. He should have put somebody better than Joe Biden, and he shouldn't have looted as much as he looted. But you guys put him out there, and the powers that be wanted him, and you fucking backed him when the guy was clearly had dementia. He clearly was having cognitive issues, and you allowed him to shit his pants and to fall off his bike and fall upstairs, walking upstairs. Falling downstairs, one thing. He fell upstairs. He was up the stairs of the plane. They had to make his stairs smaller because of his inability to walk because he has fucking Parkinson's. And all of his stuff, all of his snoozling and groping. He was a piece of shit before his mind melted down. And his fucked up son that you guys covered up for. His crackhead son that impregnated a stripper from Arkansas named Dallas, right? Whose real name was London. And so that was wonderful. And he was smoking crack and didn't even know he impregnated her, and the whole laptop thing. And so you guys allowed this stuff to happen. The anger that grew from the right wing and the disillusionment from the liberals and all these people that saw Biden shit the bed, and then you get stuck with Trump again. And now you're saying protests, go out there. 100 people got arrested. That's great, but we got to do more. What more do you got to do? What do you think is going to happen here? The system is going to collapse. Even if they got rid of Musk and Trump, the system is going to collapse. I mean, it's being oblivious to the conditions that we're, the state that we're under right now, where we are in the trajectory of our country, is that it's the people that suck. Like, you can see how degraded people are, and they get worse with each generation. So, that's the problem you guys should be addressing, but you're not, because you're morons, silly little morons doing silly little things. Okay. Hot mess. Imploding volcano. This dude's upset. This is going along with what Chris Hayes did. They're back to back. She's what's Chris Hayes at 10? I don't know. I think he's before or after her. The Hammer guy's before her, I think, so whatever. So he's at 10. Or 7, I don't know. He's somewhere. They work together at the same place. And she's pushing the same thing. I've got 10 videos of things I was going to cover in my last 2 videos I haven't even got to. And there's stuff about Trump and Israel and all this other stuff. But let's get to this first here.
For weeks now, we have seen protest after protest all across the country as Americans have pushed back against this.
They're pushing back. Look at them push back. I mean, there's like 10 people here, and maybe 100 people here, and 50 people here, and maybe 1,000 people there. Look at them pushing back.
Strategy. Push back against what Donald Trump and his top campaign donor.
This could be all one thing. It was Boise, Idaho, Palo Alto, California, Boston, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C.
been doing to the United States and to the federal government. Demonstrations all over.
Musk has billions of dollars, but 0 cents. Boom! Stop Musk, illegal coup.
The country. Now the activist group Indivisible is planning for a big one. What they want to be a big central demonstration where everybody shows up in the same place. Saturday, April 5th, Indivisible is announcing what they're calling Hands Off.
Hands off, Indivisible. Individual and liberty and justice for all.
A nationwide mobilization to stop the most brazen power grab in modern history.
Boom. Strong words from that dude.
Joining us now is Ezra Levin, co-executive director of Indivisible. Ezra, thank you for being with us tonight.
Ezra. The guy's name's Ezra.
Appreciate it.
Of course, Rachel. Great to be here.
It's been a couple of weeks since we checked in. Tell me how Indivisible has been operating.
Indivisible. Fuck.
Over these past few weeks.
What's up with Indivisible?
The president and Republican members of Congress have started to talk about you as if you are some sort of like foreign terrorist threat or something. We know that you've got their attention. How have things been from Indivisible's perspective?
Look, we're going through what's known as a wave moment in organizing circles as Indivisible. We had more local Indivisible groups join. These are volunteers.
They're volunteers on Indivisible. They're Indivisible. I'm looking for Indivisible, and people want to go Indivisible.
Start local Indivisible groups in their community.
Start your local Indivisible. Listen to Better Than Ezra.
In November than any months in 2017. We beat the November month in December, beat the December month in January, beat the January month in February. It's mid-March. We've had over 100 local Indivisible groups join, and these are peaceful protesters shown up to make their voices heard in red states, purple states, blue states. So how's it going? Well, the opposition has taken note and criticizing us, so I think it's going pretty darn well.
Pretty darn well. Listen to Ezra.
What's the plan for April 5th, and how is that different from the other kinds of actions that you guys have been taking part in?
So for the last several weeks, we've been hearing from old and new Indivisible group leaders, hey, we're all
new and old Indivisible
together. We're doing these actions locally, but when do we actually really hit the streets?
When do we hit the streets with Indivisible?
We all show up in mass. That's what this is. I want to be clear. This is not just Indivisible. We're partnering with the brilliant folks over at 5051, with Labor.
5051 and Indivisible.
With lots of other folks. But this is an organic, energy-fed moment.
It's fed by energy. Indivisible. We run on energy. Not like Elon Musk's cars that run on electricity. Indivisible.
Anybody who is watching this can sign up and register.
Wait, anybody? Can I sign up for Indivisible? Do I qualify?
in their community to say, look, hands off our jobs.
Hands off our jobs. It's invisible.
Off our democracy. Hands off our volcano observatories. My God. We need to show up because Doge and this administration is negatively impacting all of us in all of our communities. So yes, there's going to be a big presence in D.C., but it's not just D.C.
It's not D.C. Indivisible.
See this in rural areas, in suburban areas, in urban areas, in red states, purple states, blue states, and it's going to take all of us. So this is an opportunity for all of us to stand up together and demonstrate the power, the people power that is against
people power, indivisible.
Doge, against Musk, against Trump.
You're seeing all different, I mean, we've been trying to track it on this show, trying all different kinds of protests from all different kinds of people in all different kinds of places. Again, this call on April 5th for everybody to do something together all in that day. Ezra Levin, co-executive director of Indivisible, thanks for your time tonight.
Okay, so I was hoping they'd say how many people, because I bet it's under 5,000. It's a small Trump rally. They're not going to get as many as people that would show up at a Trump rally or Bernie Sanders rally, right? They're probably going to have 5,000 people and then other places across the country. And they'll cover it because it's the mainstream media. They're covering this bullshit. But nobody's watching her. Like, their ratings are tanking. So no one gives a shit. This is it's denutted. This is like limp dick. There's nothing here. It's indivisible. It's indivisible. Like, it's silly little people doing silly little things, right? And so, wonderful, though. They're embracing the Alex Jones model, the failed Alex Jones InfoWars model, and these bullshit protests that nobody fucking cares about. Only the people at inconveniences who get pissed off. And so, that's that. Again, I had all these other things I was going to cover. I have one more thing about Chosen1s. Let me show you that. Somebody sent me this on Instagram. Okay, so I think somebody sent me something from this guy before. Before we get into it, I want to say that I looked up the rally, the indivisible, the rally. They don't have a number. It's going to be big, but it's probably going to be the size of a Trump thing, you know, a rally. And so there's that. And I tried to look up Tesla ownership, and there wasn't clear statistical data on it. But, you know, it's mostly liberals. It's maybe people who are, you know, it's not Republicans buying Teslas, maybe now, but before it was, you know, I mean, it was funded for green people. It was supposed to be green vehicles, right? But anyways, this guy, I think I've seen this guy before. And he talks about these people called Chosen1s. And I guess this is something going around. Somebody sent me this on Instagram. I'm going to show you. Well, let's get into it here.
Real true chosen one is very quiet. They very quiet when they get around people because they have to play dumb.
So I kind of agree with this guy's saying, and I think it's a positive thing to some extent. I'll get into the whole thing about Chosen1s because I don't agree with that term, but, you know, the general gist of it, right? What he's talking about is evolved souls. But what he says here, so I thought that this, you know, there's this annoying beat. And I'm like, well, maybe there's a better version of this because I thought somebody had taken his version, but this is actually his version. And it says here, Chosen1s act and play dumb. They are really highly intellectual, don't fit. Above that, let me see if I can. Here, I cut off the part by accident. It says beats by Lucky. He puts these beats down. And I looked at a couple of his videos, and he puts these annoying beats. And he says that Chosen1s are quiet, and yet he's putting an annoying beat behind it. You know, it's vibration. Chosen1s, well, again, I'm using his terminology, and I'll talk about what this really is. But God is subtle. Like one of the great teachings of Sajmark's system is God is subtle, and so you need subtle means to achieve God. And so this idea of Chosen1s is like a little bit like off, but again, like I don't want to shit on the guy's thing here because I think it's positive, but it's, you know, a little bit remedial. I mean, it's, you know, it needs to evolve, right? And so you don't need beats. If you're saying is great, what you're saying is true, then putting a beat is just wrecking the vibration of it, right? Like if there's divinity within you and you're saying things that are coming from a divine place, then putting a beat to it doesn't help it. You're not turning it into a hip-hop song, right? You're making something subtle into something, that's distracting and off-putting.
Because most of the time they know much more than the average person. They are beyond their time. They are very wise individuals. And so most of the time, a chosen one, they feel like they acting, and they have to act in front of people to be normal, because they know most people are literally not on their level intellectually. So when you're around a chosen one, you won't even know it's a chosen one, because they will be acting normal. They'll act like they don't know anything. They'll act dumb and they'll be quiet, but really they know more than you could ever imagine. So this is why chosen ones are quiet and they keep their mouth closed. They play dumb.
He gets a little swagger there at the end. And again, I don't want to shit on the guy's what he's saying, because I think it's positive. It's whatever it is. Like, there's truth in what he's saying. But first, let's dispel the idea of chosen one. So there's technical aspects to spiritual evolution and the evolution of souls and saints and higher developed souls, right? And so there's two types of souls that become saints or are saintly. There are souls that are called avatars, and this is a completely definition than the one you're familiar with, right? So I don't know what the avatar means in the show Avatar. Like, my kids used to watch that cartoon show. I watched the Netflix TV series. It was okay, kind of interesting. My kids had watched it, and I watched the horrible M. Night Shyamalan movie, which was a debacle. And there was a cartoon series, and the Avatar is, these higher developed beings that are like superheroes. And there's, of course, avatars in a video game. But avatars, if you're ever reading a Sajmark book, an avatar is a soul that comes down with a specific work, like a higher developed work, and they have their spiritual approach where they are in terms of their spiritual yatra, the spiritual yatra points. There are these points that you go through, and when you go through these points, there are powers that can be opened up to you if you need them. And this Krishna was an avatar, which was, he's Vishnu, and Rama, he was also Vishnu. These are two different time periods. Rama was like 100,000 years before Krishna, something like that. And Rama and Krishna were both avatars, because Vishnu, the soul that's in charge of preservation, right? Destruction, creation, preservation. There's a soul. There's always a soul that's in charge. Like, there's a soul that's in charge of the sun and the earth. There's one in charge of the weather, and all these things, right? There's souls. There's spiritual energy in everything, even things like rivers and things like that, right? And there's cosmic functionaries, higher developed souls, that are in charge of monitoring on a spiritual level what's happening on the material level. They get in charge of that. They're working on the spiritual level to ensure the function of whatever they're in charge of, right? There's a soul that's in charge of death, that's there when anything dies. This Yama, what people could think of the Grim Reaper, but it's a soul that is there, that's processing. You're leaving your body and going somewhere else, and so there's all these things. And so an avatar is a spiritual being that comes down with this assignment, and once their assignment's over, they leave. There's Master Charji was saying there's been saints that have come down and they did their work, and then they just hold their breath and they go. They just leave their bodies. They just will themselves to death. Imagine holding your breath until you die, and then your soul is released. Like, they did the work they were supposed to do. It's not suicide. They're like, all right, I'm done. My body's still going. I don't want to be here any longer. I've done my work and I'm leaving. And so, on that kind of level of discipline and whatever it is. But then there are souls that work to achieve something. And the difference between them and avatars is their spiritual evolution is not guaranteed. That's the rest of us, where we have to work for it. But as an avatar is limited to the spiritual approach that they need to do the work, a person who is working individually can evolve until the highest level. And so that's the advantage of being someone who has to work at it. And that's a soul that comes down maybe with some spiritual capital from previous lives, but you have to work at it, right? And so this idea of chosen ones doesn't exist in reality because nobody's special. You have some souls that are guaranteed because they have specific work they have to do, a spiritual approach, but they don't get stuck here. They're not going to get a future life. They're already beyond the point of liberation. So they can come down as a soul, do their work, fulfill their role, and leave. And so it's not really a chosen one, but they're a little bit better off than the average soul. And then there's the rest of us, and some of us can work harder and become saints, become spiritually developed people. And so this idea, again, this chosen people and chosen ones, it's silly. And to think it's one demographic or one group of people or one religion or one ethnicity is silly. You know, silly little people thinking silly little things. And so, you know, the chosen one thing I don't like. But what he said about people like that who are spiritually evolved, you know, when you're on a higher spiritual level, the person who sent this to me was including, let me see if I can find the actual when they sent it to me here. Got to scroll down. And the person said, imagine how you look when you walk through Walmart. I probably look the same way too. Right now, all this potential spirits incarnating in human bodies are growing in silence while God waits to send the peace call, the time to action. You know, it's counterintuitive to think about yourself as being higher or more developed because you're comparing yourself to people who are completely going the wrong direction. Like 99% of people are not working at all on their spiritual, you know, journey and their character qualities, and they're not developing in a positive way. They're adding more grossness, and we all are to some extent. And so if you compare yourself to other people, you're going to fail because they're all failing. If your goal is only to be better than the average person or even the you know, above average person, you're going to fail because most of those people, I mean, anybody who's not on a spiritual path is failing. Anybody who's not connected to their soul or conscious of any of these things. You have some people who are so remedial in their consciousness, you know, if they do a little bit of a religion, you know, maybe it's a step in the right direction. I mean, it's hard for me to gauge each person because it's specific to that person. But, you know, when they die, it's failure. Like they've lived a failed life. And so as a spiritual person, you know, somebody who's connected to the divinity within you, you know, you're probably floundering, right? Like I am, like, you know, like, and I've evolved, I've gotten better, and the Sajmark system and, you know, all the stuff that I've done and, you know, work I've put into it. But I don't know how successful it is. You know, I'm better than I was when I started. So that's something, right? And, you know, once that happens in your life, you look at everyone else and go, oh man, we're fucked. You know, if I'm the best that, if I'm amongst the best that humanity has to offer, we're fucked, right? Like I could say that with complete certainty. If I'm on the top, you know, the upper end, you know, I'm on in the higher percentile of spiritually evolving people, then we're fucked, right? If, you know, like I mean, it's not a good thing, right? And so, this idea of chosen ones is silly. I mean, not just because God does, you have to choose, you have to work at it. But these idea that there's these kids being indigo and crystal kids, great. You know, get going, start working. You know, there's a lot to do in your own existence, in your own internal world. And, you know, I've seen Sajmark people, many of them saints, like really high developed souls. You know, I've had various past lives. Like I had really long past life as a Suric king, like a demonic king, a negative king, you know, some kind of bad life. And I had some other lives or whatever. I was in the Mahabharata. And I know I've had spiritual journeys, you know, I've worked on my spiritual journey in the past. And even with that, you know, people failed with the system of Sajmark, which is the best system to help people who are spiritual connect to the divinity within them. There's been a lot of failure. It's going to take multiple lives. You know, the system itself has collapsed with the heartfulness debacle. Those of you who've heard my journey series and heard me talk about this. And so with all those things, you know, keeping all these things in mind, there's no chosen ones. There's no special group of people. You know, again, if you have to sit back and not be who you are because people won't understand you, you've got to nod and act and play along and be quiet, then what the fuck, right? You know, if you're a higher developed soul, you should be an example for people. But people can't fucking see you, right? you know, when people like rag on me or, you know, try to call bullshit on me for mocking people or covering mundane things, you know, I'm doing that for your benefit. Like, I don't give a shit about this stuff. I already said over and over again, I don't believe the system can be saved. So, you know, I make fun of it and laugh at it. You know, that's stuff I've done my whole life. You know, when I was a kid even. You know, the obscurity of our silly little goals and our silly little, you know, desires and our dreams that are just goofy and, you know, part of this system and our goofy rituals and all these things, you know, that we do that are just a waste of time. Like, I knew they were a waste of time when I was a kid, right? And now so even more. But, you know, I have to dive down into where people are at, or, you know, people aren't going to rise up to a higher level. You know, if I embrace my true consciousness, which is far away from the goal, and I talk from that place, most people don't understand what I'm fucking talking about. And again, I'm far away from the goal. Someone who has achieved the pinnacle of human spiritual evolution, you wouldn't even be able to understand that person. Even if they, you know, I mean, this is not a language barrier, it's a consciousness barrier. You know, it's a consciousness divide, right? You're divided from their level of consciousness, and that's sad to say, but that's where we're at. So any idea of chosen ones, you know, we're about to fucking wreck this planet and be depopulated. Like, we're either going to go up or we're going to go down. If we go down, that's it for human beings. It's a failed experiment. Like, it's like we're at that kind of choice point, which you can clearly see. Like, they've thrown the spiritual beings that have thrown one person, one movement into this planet time and time again. And the Sajmark system that I talk about is a Hail Mary that people don't want any part of. And maybe in a post-apocalyptic world they will, I don't know. You know, there's so many things that I can't even imagine, you know, once the shit hits the fan, but it is what it is, right? And so it's available right now for everybody, but people don't want to choose it. And the ones who dabble in it can't think of themselves as great or better. I mean, maybe they are better, maybe you're more evolved. I mean, I certainly see by consciousness, you know, that's why I talk about things like this here, because I know that I know more, because unfortunately for all of us, I'm in the higher end of the thing, right? In terms of my understanding of what can be and what should be done and all these things in spiritual journey from my own experience. But that isn't a good thing. Like, you know, at best I'm a slacker, you know, like fucking, you know, I'm into it, but I'm not, you know, I'm no superstar of the spiritual world. Like, it's just, like, I know what needs to be done, and I know how hard it is, and I, you know, I hope to improve enough and invest more in it as I get older. But, you know, in future existences, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. You know, I'm at least doing something. But that shouldn't be the kind of person that's, you know, a voice for this thing. You know, like, I shouldn't be somebody who's like one of the sole voices out there talking about connecting to the divinity within you, which is just the first step. Like, there should be like many more people talking about this process of connecting to the divinity within you, rising up above your religion and having a relationship with your soul, and doing a system that's available to help you do that has wonderful services of cleaning and transmission that have never been available before. And, you know, even the people who do it have shit the bed with this guy Dodgy. You know, these people who I stayed at some of these people's houses, and they live like saints. They're amazing people who are way better at Sajmark than I am, way more into it, and just better people in general, nicer people. But they couldn't navigate this fucking corruption and this bullshit shit that happened with this clown Dodgy. And so, you know, it's sad to see, and it doesn't speak well for humanity. So fucking chosen ones, there's no chosen ones is like, that's, you know, it should be more like functional people. Chosen ones are people who are functioning the way that they, you know, should be, or at least dabbling in it, right? Somebody asked Babaji, what are you? And he said, I am what I ought to be, which is a very simple, humbling statement. I mean, a humble statement from him, that he is what he ought to be. But what's implied with that is people aren't what they ought to be. They're an abomination of what they should be, right? He's embracing his divine nature and soul, and he's doing everything, all of his energy went into serving God. That's all he thought about, that's all he did, which is a, you know, hard thing to do, and most people can't even conceive of that, where you're not allowing your mind to wander aimlessly, doing a bunch of bullshit things and thinking a bunch of bullshit things and egotistical things and desire-based things and addictive things and random thoughts that have no value, where you're just using all of your time and all of your energy and all your thoughts focused on one thing, and that's serving God and becoming a better instrument to serve God. And that's what this guy Babaji did. Like, that was his achievement. So he is what he ought to be. And so that's, you know, that's not a chosen one, but that's somebody who just completely devotes their life to serving God. And then there are people who do it not as good as that, but they do it, right? And then there's people who dabble in it like me and other people. And so, you know, there's some of us, and we're trying. At least it's not, hey, these are chosen ones. It's, hey, at least I'm trying. You know, at least I'm working at it. You know, at least I'm doing something. I mean, that's that's the most you can say about the majority of people, and that's like scary because, you know, where we need great people, we don't have shit, right? We have people. At least I'm trying. At least I'm giving the old college try, right? And so, chosen ones, right? Playoffs. This guy. Did you see this guy Jim Moore? You've probably seen this. If you're a sports person, he's going. Somebody asked him about the playoffs. He goes, playoffs. You playoffs? Playoffs? We're not talking about the playoffs. Like he got fired after that. Like he was coach of the Indianapolis Colts years ago. This is like 20 years ago. And he was dumbfounded by them asking about the playoffs when they're barely squeaking by, right? Chosen ones? So it's not, we're not at that level of chosen ones, right? There's no chosen ones anyway. That has this idea, this is the whole idea that Jesus is the only Son of God, right? And Jesus was somebody who worked at it. You know, people think he's an avatar, and he wasn't. The way I described avatars. Jesus achieved something. He started at whatever level he came in on. You know, there is some level of, you know, souls are sent down here, and there's going to be a movement. Like Jesus was a plan, right? What he did was a plan, and it was for a specific group of people in a specific region. You know, in Israel, that region of Middle East European area that now is called Palestine. It won't be called that for long. But that area, you know, in Israel, that he was supposed to elevate souls. And, you know, look at how that place is now, right? That's what Jesus was sent down to work with those specific people. He went to India, got some training. He went there, it's part of a movement. And it's just another failed movement. They became a religion that's been, had some benefit, but mostly it's disconnected people, blocked people from connecting to the divinity within them, like most religions do. It gets corrupted, and he's bummed about what happened. I mean, I know this as much as I know anything, that he's not looking at Christianity as a success, right? None of these souls would look at something like that and see it, as that. Just because a lot of people know his name and he's famous, and some of his teachings are put out in front of various, billions of people, and other people who aren't Christians who still hear about the teachings. Just because that happened doesn't mean it's a success. It matters whether people are transformed, and they're not. And so there's been one failed attempt after another, and it isn't the spiritual people that are sent down here are failing. It's everybody else. It's human beings don't want God. Human beings don't want a relationship with God, right? And I've talked about how Master Charji has said that Christians, have a certain, they want a son, not the father. They don't want to have a relationship with God. They want a relationship with the son. Like you go to your boss's son because you're scared of the boss. You don't want to talk to your boss because you're worried your boss will yell at you or fire you. So you go to his son and you say, hey, can you talk to your dad for me? Like, this is a great observation about Christians and Christianity. They don't even want a relationship with God. They want a relationship with God's son because it's easier to deal with the son than it is to deal with the essence of divinity. But the divinity is within all of us, and we don't want any part of it. I mean, as a collective. And so, humanity will fail as long as that's the case. And so, what this kid put up there, what this guy put up there is just positive. But it isn't, throwing a beat on it, and it isn't profound. You have people who are spiritual, who are a little bit more evolved. They've had some past lives. They kind of get it a little bit. And they look at everyone else who look like drunken fools, and they seem like they're better, than the average person, which they are. At least they're working on it. At least they're trying a little bit. At least their consciousness is growing a little bit. Maybe they're going in the right direction, but that's not enough. That's not enough for themselves as their own spiritual evolution. It's not enough for what we need as a human species. And so I'm going to put this at the end of my journey series as well. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. Both videos, both the video I'm making for my regular channel and the Journey 183. And, God bless you. Only spirituality will save this world. Is Paramount definitely poised for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.